So Jerome Powell did as Jerome Powell does, and that is bring the mood of the entire room down a solid 90%. Because based off of earlier economic news, the GDP numbers for the United States were above expectations, so really, really good for the market. Obviously, that kind of set a precedence that more than likely no rate cut in the month of September. But some of the things that Powell said caused even greater hesitation that there would even be a rate cut in September. Not to mention the fact that October's and December's predictive markets for rate cuts remaining the same as they are right now doubled, which is, to me, absolute insanity. We'll talk about all of that and more in today's video. If you're new here, my name is Alex, provide you crypto daily updates so you're always in the know and you're up to date on what is happening in the crypto space. If you enjoy content like that, consider following. You enjoyed this video, smash up the like. Without further ado, let's get into the video. So earlier today, the FOMC had its major meeting, which let us know essentially what was going to be happening with the rates. And rates were going to remain stable as many people expected. But the more important thing was what was going to be happening for the distant future. And what Jerome Powell clued us in on wasn't what many who were very bullish were hoping for. And I think a lot of that was also due to the economic data that came in earlier. As far as the United States is concerned, the overall bounce back for the economy was exceptional from GDP numbers. So according to this post by Benny Johnson talking about this is a 38-second clip. We'll play this very briefly so you can kind of understand what Jerome Powell talked about. But essentially, no rate change, blames Trump for tariffs on higher prices, inflation coming, and by lowering rates is not going to be ideal, which had a huge impact on futures predictions of rates. And we'll look at that in just a second. Let's play this.
Total PCE prices rose 2.5% over the 12 months ending in June, and that, excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose 2.7%. These readings are little changed from the beginning of the year, although the underlying composition of price changes has shifted.
So essentially he's saying nothing's really changed from the beginning of the year, which they haven't had any reason to cut rates substantially since the beginning of the year, so it's kind of maintaining the status quo.
Services inflation has continued to ease, while increased tariffs are pushing up prices in some categories of goods. Near-term measures of inflation expectations have moved up on balance over the course of this year on news about tariffs, as reflected in both market-based and survey-based measures.
So pretty much kind of sets a precedence for the rest of the year. On top of that, mind you, in 2 days, it is August 1st. And on August 1st, Trump tariffs start to play a role. Countries have been trying to make deals, but that deadline ends. So there's going to be a huge news, obviously, coming by Friday. So expect a lot of volatility. Yes, most of the volatility is over. We'll look at that in just a second when we look at charts. But there's going to be even more volatility come Friday, as we may see, maybe it's good news that gets announced that, we've seen historically what moves the market, right? It's rate cuts and tariffs. That has been what's been moving the crypto market all year long. And it's not been Michael Saylor buying $2 billion worth of Bitcoin doesn't move the market. What moves the market is tariffs and rate cuts. And we've had the rate cut market move today, and we're going to see a tariff market move come Friday. Expectation, there's not been a lot of updates on those tariffs. So there's probably going to be major moves in the negative direction, unless very good news and unless they're waiting to drop all the golden eggs on us come Friday. Right now, there's really not a lot to get excited about because there's been the European deal. That was great, but everyone's more concerned about everything else, and obviously more specifically the likes of China. And one of my friends, George, Cryptos Are Us, obviously same sentiment that most of us currently have right now. Powell needing to be fired, which that could be a whole trend in and of itself. Fire Jerome Powell. But he isn't even sure about cutting rates in September, which kind of goes to show these numbers that we were talking about yesterday, saying that the percentage, and even earlier today, when the GDP numbers came in higher than expected, the increase of 6%, this was around 40% earlier, that the rate cuts were going to stay the same. Now that number is at 54%. Absolutely insane, as we've jumped to a higher likelihood now of the rates being the same in September. So we've had multiple FOMC meetings where rates have been the same, no changes. And what's even scarier is the fact that even October's rate cuts, this is October, the chances of rates remaining the same in October doubled, almost doubled. I mean, this is an 80% jump compared to how it was just 1 day ago. So this shows you how people are thinking about what Jerome Powell said. It's not impacting just September, it's even impacting the months of October. You can look at, even if you just briefly look at December, you can see the impact that it's also had on December. I mean, everyone was almost for sure guaranteed that there was going to be a rate cut. Some thought we would already be down 75 basis points potentially by this time. This would be a huge drop, but we're not going to be, the likelihood is maybe, just maybe, seeing 25 basis points. But there's even a higher likelihood that the chance of no rate cut in December doubled from where it was just 1 day ago. I mean, just look at this. This is just absolutely insane. A month ago, the chance of no rate cut was almost zero. Now we're over 11%. So, I think a lot of people, similar sentiment to myself. I think this is in many ways Jerome Powell's way of sticking it to Trump. Obviously, they have the best friendship in the world. I think this is possibly part of it. And then obviously the uncertainty of how tariffs are going to be. I think that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out August 1st. And obviously that is going to be a huge defining factor for the September 17th meeting. We're going to have a month and a half to see how the overall impacts are, to see if there's going to be that rate cut. So it'll be interesting either way. But here's the thing is, regardless of what is happening
5% over the 12
in
months
the I don't know why that start playing, but regardless of what's happening in the crypto space, regardless of the news, there's always opportunities to trade and take advantage of the volume and the momentum when you take a look at level of support, look at levels of resistance. So earlier, this was what was it, earlier today, well, I had a limited open position. I opened at 117.5 because I knew there was going to be some level of support here. So I got in with a position here. And I knew from just looking at technical analysis that there was going to be huge level of support. So I was expecting a bit of a bounce. We bounced all the way up here to almost 19,000. So pretty good trade overall. And I put in a stop loss. Stop loss got hit, won this way back down. That's why it's always important to have stop losses regardless of how your trades are going. And then earlier today, this was almost a no-brainer seeing this dip here. We dropped all the way down here to just about 16K. I've talked about this nonstop, 16K. That'd be scary. 116,000. We've talked about this level of support nonstop. 116K is a huge level of support for Bitcoin. It was almost expected to see a bounce off there. We've seen that. And for me, I just wanted to I had 4 buys. I wanted to take some profit off the top because I didn't know if it was just going to be more of a dead cat bounce. We bounce up and then we continue further down because we did have further down momentum when we dropped down here to 15K, right? So we had this drop here to 15K, pumped only to drop once again. And I simply didn't want to catch myself or get caught with my pants down essentially in this type of trade, because that's where a lot of people will get in long, think that we're just going to go straight to a reversal, top out, and it just goes right back down. They're over leveraged, they lose their money, and then they get to enjoy everybody else taking less risk, making sure they take opportunities and they see everybody else go back up and them on the sidelines. So always be mindful of how you're trading. There's always plenty of opportunities in the market. But I think in the end, looking at how things are going to be going, you got to remember August, historically doesn't mean it's going to be the same every time. historically is not a tremendous month. It's not a July. It's not an all-time high month typically for Bitcoin. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty until September 17th. So there's going to be some opportunities along the way. But I think September 17th could be a really good month, or September 17th being a really good day, and September being a really good month potentially for Bitcoin based on the potential and probabilities of a rate cut. So something to keep your eye on. Outside of that, there was some really decent news coming from from more of the legislative side of crypto earlier today. You saw the SIBO BZX and NYSE ARCA propose new SEC filing standards to streamline crypto ETFs approvals. Typically, this was a process that took 240 plus days, and they're trying to make this a lot faster, which is good to see. The overall approval of this allows issuers not to request a specific approval for each crypto ETF as long as it meets certain criteria. So it just kind of sets the standard and just allows approvals to go a lot faster. Typically this triggers a period of 240 days review. This is going to make things a lot faster and streamline the process. Outside of that, you did have Robinhood have some really, really good numbers. And I think Robinhood in many ways is still extremely undervalued. Obviously, there's going to be some people who don't like Robinhood for certain historical reasons, but when you take a look at what they're doing, the acquisitions that they've had, the revenue that they're driving, further revenues that they're going to have with these recent acquisitions that aren't even included, this is going to be it's already been a huge year. When you look at Hood stock, in the past year, it's up over the last 365 days, 420%. Absolutely insane. One of the best performers. In fact, this article talks about the fact that Robinhood 175% rally is the best among U.S. stocks. So when you take a look at companies, because some people want to have stock exposure when it comes to crypto, Robinhood is a great option. So is Coinbase, because a lot of what they do is more than just crypto. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people fail to realize. Robinhood is a lot more than just stocks. It's crypto. They're getting ready to get potentially involved in different metals. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for the likes of Robinhood that I think a lot of people aren't taking into account. Their crypto trading volume rose 32% year over year as they introduce more and more altcoins. Recently, they introduced Hedera. We've seen an influx of new introductions. That just simply brings more volume back to Robinhood. You see transaction-based cryptocurrencies revenues rose 98%. And you see the overall trading volume, $46 billion in its first quarter, $252 million in crypto-related transaction-based revenue. So just overall really, really, really good numbers. On Wednesday, this is them because they bought an exchange, Bitstamp. Their crypto notional trading volumes were $7 billion, just Bitstamp following the closing of the acquisition. And lastly, Robinhood's product velocity staggering. Securities analyst wrote in Client saying tapping into a $600 billion total addressable market with just a sliver of market share today. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for the likes of Robinhood. And I think it's very, very undervalued. When you take a look at something like Hyperliquid, this is more on the crypto side. When you take a look at the likes of Hyperliquid is fully diluted valuation at almost $42 billion. This is from a valuation, this is close to around $50 billion at their all-time highs. This is half the valuation of Robinhood, right? So that's just insane to think about. This, I think this just shows so much more opportunity and potential in the likes of Robinhood. Obviously up on a tremendous run, maybe see a correction if you're wanting to gain exposure to crypto-based stocks because they have been doing really, really well. I mean, when you take a look at Coin, over the last year, up 68%. This is really, really good compared to maybe some of your favorite altcoins that haven't even been performing to this level. So some of the things that we talked about, especially with stocks that have outperformed cryptos that are directly involved in crypto acquisitions, such as ETH, such as acquiring ETH, acquiring Bitcoin, etc. So plenty of opportunities out there to take advantage of. And, I think the biggest thing that a lot of people are looking for is how everything else is happening right now in the market. The amounts of people that are from an institutional demand. There is still very, very high institutional demand. And I think that we're going to continue to see this grow. I think that we're going to see, you're going to see small corrections like we saw earlier today. But when you look at it from a long-term perspective, there is such growing demand for Bitcoin exposure. This only goes to drive Bitcoin price. This only goes to drive Ethereum price. This just drives prices up across the board. So still, we had a little bit of a correction today. In the end, you have to step back, look at the bigger picture. There's a lot more opportunity. There's a lot more room to run. You're going to have minor setbacks with Jerome Powell in the short term, but long term, you got to look at the long play and realize there's still that much more upside and that much more opportunity. And the last thing I really want to highlight is Ethereum. Now, we talked about Ethereum before. I think there's a very good likelihood that we see Ethereum at 5,000 before the end of the year. I think, and I want to be very modest in my expectation. I don't want to be one of those people that says that XRP is going to go to 15,000. It's the same thing as if you said USDT is going to go to $10 as a stable coin. It's kind of ridiculous. But in the end, I think there's a very good likelihood, the same way that happened with Bitcoin. When Bitcoin broke out into a level that it's never been in before, you kind of started seeing this euphoric pumps because people didn't know where the top was. I think once Ethereum passes 4,500, prior levels of resistance, there's going to be this euphoric stage where Ethereum just pumps and people don't know where it stops. And I think that is when things are going to get exciting. That is when we're a lot closer to the top. We haven't yet reached euphoric, and I'm excited to reach euphoric, and hopefully you're taking advantage of these short-term dips to be able to enjoy those euphoric stages. But let me know your thoughts. Does Ethereum reach 5,000 before the end of the year? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Enjoyed this video, smash the like. You enjoy content like this, consider following. Until next time, guys, stay invested.